we have worked with, and it's a huge challenge, is our child nutrition program. We have tried to implement programs that are fairly easy to do in an urban setting, in a rural setting. And the challenge is you never have the mass. For example, you have a community where a county, George County, Mississippi, which was impacted heavily by the Katrina, and they have employees who drive to work on the waterfront and all that. It has a high school, and it has a middle school, and it has, I think, 2 elementary schools. Well, you can have an after-school snack, after-school program, and we can provide snacks at the middle school or the elementary school. But in the summer, they're not there. They're 15 miles away in the little community where they happen to live. So you can't do year-round programs. So you have to do double the management to get the same kind of care for the kids.
Absolutely.
Well, there's no provision to finance that. And of course, the local organization has a terrific problem because you have to fit up all the government requirements if you want reimbursement. So we, several years ago, decided to take the leap, and we do all the work. So we have a person who is trained by the state of Mississippi and qualified to set up programs and do those sorts of things, but she still has that challenge of getting out to a community and convincing them you need to just find a place to get 20 kids together during the summer in a healthy environment so we can give them free lunch. And it's just a huge challenge to do child nutrition that way. And the challenge to me is always that every time we say it's hard, somebody from a big city will say, well, it's not hard for us. We have 12 sites and we do 15,000 kids, or whatever the number is.
Just, you know, it's
and
not,
they don't understand.
Not apples to apples.
Yeah, in New York City, because I did this once to prove that I needed a truck. In New York City.
Is that where you're from?
No.
Okay.
No, I just used it.
Okay.
My daughter was going to grad school in New York, so I used the Bronx. And there are something like 34,000 people per square mile in the Bronx. And in Choctaw County, Alabama, there are 17. Now, something tells you that, and when you lay down the number of food pantries in New York City, it says there's a food pantry approximately every 1,000 feet. In Choctaw County, Alabama, it's 20 miles apart.
I knew it,
So to service the people is tremendously more challenging. And therefore it costs more money. And yet everybody wants a cookie cutter. The government says, well, you get 47 cents.
It never works.
And you go, but wait a minute, it costs 87 cents. Well, we're sorry. Don't know why you can't do it like everybody else.
See.
So it's a huge challenge.
See.
And ironically, then you run up against the bureaucratic logjams. For example, we're sitting here 15 miles from the Mississippi state line. We have a nice kitchen. We can
commercial grade
kitchen. We produce 2,500 lunches in the summer to send out to kids every day. We can drive them 100 miles north of here to Evergreen, Alabama, but we can't drive it 16 miles to Pascagoula, Mississippi, because we crossed the state line, and therefore you can't do it because you don't have a health permit to cross state line. Dumb. So to help kids in Mississippi, we have to have another kitchen. That doubles our operating costs, but we don't get any extra money to do that. So it is a tremendous challenge working with the government because they're so inflexible. They're so inflexible that in the case of Mississippi, all the paperwork is here. Our employee is here. The state of Mississippi doesn't allow their inspector to come across the state line. So instead of driving over here 15 miles to inspect the books, they rent office space in Pascagoula, and we have to carry the books over there. So they pay $150 a day for the day for a rented office, instead of paying 30 miles of mileage, which is
48.5 cents,
yeah,
whatever it is.
15
Yeah,
bucks.
that's nothing.
So they spend 10 times as much money to save the bureaucracy from thinking outside an artificial line on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a huge issue, and we're unique because we handle all 3 state programs.
So what what are guys like Shelby and other elected officials doing around this? What I mean, I stepped into his office a couple of weeks ago when I was in D.C. Couldn't get a meeting with him, but I wanted to say, yo man, what's going on?
Well, Senator Shelby does a lot for Alabama,
Mm-hmm.
but frankly, he doesn't have the authority to walk across the Mississippi and say, "This is a dumb rule.
Mm-hmm.
Can you change it?"
Mm-hmm.
So you have to develop relationships where you're at.
Uh-huh.
That's another problem we have today.
Yeah.
We have a physical presence in our warehouse in Florida,
Mm-hmm.
and a physical warehouse here in Alabama. But we don't have a warehouse in Mississippi, so therefore we're not residents. So therefore we're not a political tool.
Yeah.
So therefore we have very little political
Capital.
clout at the state level.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're looking to change that. In fact, after I've looked at the Mississippi casinos as a possible source of funding
Mm-hmm.
to put a warehouse into Mississippi, because then we can say, Congressman Taylor, Senator Cochran,
Yep.
Senator Wicker,
Mm-hmm.
we are your food bank.
Yes.
We are serving your people, and our warehouse is in wherever it happens to be.
Yeah.
But today, when we go visit them, and we do visit them, when we go visit them, we talk a lot, but you can see that we're not
High priority.
constituents.
Yeah.
And that changes the whole scenario.
Wow. So, in Seattle, we may not have, hurricanes, but we do have earthquakes.
Sure.
And we've got a lot of water.
A lot of water.
And a lot of ships that carry,
hazardous materials
and stuff like that. So, one of the lessons that we're trying to share with folks before it ever happens is to try and figure out from the sage wisdom of folks here, how best should we, and you should know that I have a really close relationship with the mayor of Seattle. He called me before he got elected, and he was behind in the polls, and he said, "Stacy, what should I do?" And that was really for the other guy. Because the other guy was a business guy. Well, the other guy was an executive at T-Mobile. Yeah. He was a corporate guy, and versus the Sierra Club guy. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, the corporate guy's worked. He's managed 5,000, person, unit. Sierra Club guy, well, he's managed a 30-person nonprofit. How with maybe a couple $1 million budget. Yeah. How does that translate through to a 13,000 person
architect
business with a $1 billion budget? Sure. I don't see that. I what I see is a long learning curve. Yeah, the person has to be able to adapt. It's all scale. Yeah. It is all scale. I can see. You have to be able to think in components, and hopefully, but that's off to something. So I told him, hey man, I'm and I don't even live in Seattle. I live across the bridge. So I don't even have a vote, but what's that? Which bridge? The 520 bridge in Seattle. Kirkland, east side. We're a bunch of people who Microsoft, Google people. Okay, yeah, that's farther over. Yeah. My brother lives in Gig Harbor. Okay, so that's on the other. It's on the other side.
My grandma and uncle lived there.
But Gig Harbor.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I want to be able to take back is preparedness. I call it the 5 Ps. Proper preparedness prevents poor performance, and we can't afford. With our shrimp, crab, salmon, halibut, seafood industry, all the recreational opportunities and that come along with that, we need to be prepared for a earthquake. We had one in 2001 in the Smalley earthquake. That was pretty bad. I felt it. I was working for a TV station.
And the fault line going through the bay is pretty serious.